Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday, Sunday. How are you doing? How is your new year? What's going on in 2026? So today, with that idea in mind of, what's going on in 2026 and what do we want 2026 to look like, we want to talk today about identity. Not, identity like I'm Paula and you're Lena and you're Savvy and you're Scoopalicious and Aaron. But how do we identify when we first wake up in the morning? Because identity really is where it's at. Identity is what is forming our behaviors. And of course, our behaviors in turn are creating our reality. So I have some notes. So if you see me looking away, it's because I actually made some notes on this topic because it's really been on my mind. And even today, so obviously we record ahead of the time that you're seeing these episodes. My sister Lena and I were at church today. And Carolina, do you want to talk about the message?
Sure. Yeah. So I was down in Santa Fe, went to Mass with Paula and my sister and my mom. It's just a nice thing that we like to do when we're together. And the homily, or what the priest was preaching about today, was the season of Advent, which is the 4 weeks that lead up to the birth of Jesus Christ on Christmas Day. And the season of Advent is a season of hope. And a lot of times it's very similar to the Easter season, because the Easter season is the season of new beginnings. But leading up to that, we are hopeful, we are prayerful, and we are awaiting the birth of Jesus Christ. And so he was talking about how our faith and our hope really guide us into who we are and recognizing that we are a part of him. We are a part of his saving grace, even if our times and our trials right now are difficult, even when we are having an identity crisis per se. Mm-hmm. He was just reminding us that no matter how difficult our lives are right now, that we need to be hopeful that as long as we are aligned in him and with him and through him, because we are perfectly made, that we can just believe that everything's going to be okay.
Absolutely. And then also, in this podcast, I've talked about Kathy Heller, and I think we've shared something that she shared from one of her teachers. When she studied in Jerusalem, her rabbi told her that she is someone because she is some of the one, and that she's a masterpiece because she's a piece of the master. That aligned so well with what we heard at Mass today. And again, it kind of brought us back to thinking about, how do we view ourselves? And if we come from that standpoint of believing that, as Carolina was saying, that in spite of everything that's going on in our lives, if we remember the truth about who we are, which is, who are we at our core? Am I, Paula, who is a mom, and Paula, who is a worker, and Paula, who is a wife? Or am I a soul? And I think I've shared this on this podcast. I also practice Buddhism. And in Buddhism, we believe that we have the light of Buddha, the light of Buddhahood, which is our highest potential. We hold the seat of enlightenment within. And that's, your highest life condition, which is rooted in faith, rooted in God, rooted in, whatever higher power you believe in, you place your faith in.
It's rooted in goodness.
Rooted in goodness, rooted in light.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another message that Carolina and I were talking about. I'm sure you've all heard this metaphor in some shape or form, but Kathy Heller talks about this as well. And it also goes with the season, because December is like, don't we have like the darkest day? Doesn't that happen sometime soon, or did it already happen?
Well, we have the shortest days.
The shortest
is what
day.
She talked about in the podcast, is because the moon is rising in Sagittarius. She's like really goes into, what is that word? No, when you talk about like birthdays and the months and what they mean and when you were born.
Astrology.
That's the word. She talks about astrology a lot, and how it's so interesting that as we go into this season of the end of the year, December, how important it is to be the light in the darkness, because in this time, the days are shorter, but we need to strive for more light, for your goodness, and to not only see the light, but you have to be the light. And she makes an example of a rooster, because in the morning, the rooster sings as soon as it sees that there is a new day and there is a new beginning. And so there is a new light, and that we are supposed to radiate that light and bring that light forward to everyone and anyone that we encounter.
Following that same line of thinking, as Carolina was saying, there is a lot of darkness in the world right now. You know, people dying, people being killed. I think today or maybe yesterday there was a shooting at a university. So there's darkness everywhere, but it just takes one light, right? One light. How many candles can one candle light? Is it one? Is it two? Is it 10? There's an infinite amount of light that one candle can bring. Again, because of the truth of who we are, which again is, some of the one, a piece of the master, children of God, children made in the image of God. There's no limit to how much light, how much joy, how much love, how much tranquility, peace, love, etc. we can bring into the world. But it starts with that identity. I really think that's like the core. That's how we expand our life, is we have to remember who we are. What do you guys think?
I don't know if I really wake up with an identity or feeling a particular way in the morning. I mean, I do. I do have a particular feelings that I have every morning. It's not related to this topic. My mornings are
Mhm.
still very difficult for me. But when we're talking about, when I hear you say like shining a light, or I think of people who happen to show up and shine that light. That's the first thing that has come to mind. And I think of the woman who I have formed a friendship with, that I didn't know I was going to form a friendship with, who I visited in hospice care, who I'm only required to stay for 2 hours. And I find myself there for 3 hours and listening to her story over and over again. And it still doesn't get old. And she tells me how the same story about how her daughter passed away, and she cries and I cry with her, and how she just needs that companionship, and how her roommate gets on her nerves, and she's like, she's so bossy, she's so loud, and I just wish she'd shut up. And she's this sassy woman, and I'm just like, we could have been friends if I was born 40 years earlier, but
Aw.
she's got this little bit, this light in her that I want to be around, because she's got so much to share. So I think about people, being the light. And a week ago, I left her and I ordered some food at a restaurant, and I sat at the bar, and I told you ladies this story. I sat at the bar while I waited for my food, and I met two other amazing women, and we closed the place down. I got there at 6 o'clock and I didn't get home till 11 o'clock. And
Okay.
you
With
know,
perfect strangers.
total strangers. And since then, I've hung out with one of the ladies. She came over to the house and we talked for hours. And the other one, we had breakfast yesterday morning. And, been, kind of back and forth in this location for 2 years. And I had really nobody. And so these people have just kind of, little beacons of light, and talking to these people have just kind of filled a cup that has been empty for a long time, because I don't have anybody here, or this current location that I'm in. And so for me, when you're talking about light, I think of people. And then
Mhm.
my experience at church today, which was, I wasn't going to go to church today. It was cold. It was windy. I wasn't going to go. And I'm seated next to this man who put his hand on me and prayed as I was sitting down, because I had some tears during the service today, and I'm sure he saw that. And he put his hand on me, and I put my hand on his hand, and I cried. And he didn't pull away. And I could kind of hear him silently praying, and I could feel that energy. And it was just very magical for me, a total stranger.
Mhm.
And that that started my day. It was a great day. Today was a
Oh,
great
and
day.
he was your rooster.
I guess so.
I love that. I mean, that's why we go to mass. That's why we go to church. That's
Mhm.
why we go and gather on Sundays, is to be in community with others, to be in community with people that we know are prayerful and faithful. Like, just when you think about like Sunday morning, just like imagine, okay, families, parents, grandparents, single ladies, single men, children, young adults, like they wake up in the morning with like the mission of the day to go and worship, wherever that may be. And like that's happening all around the world on Sunday, the day of rest, the Lord's Day. And when you think about like how big that community is, how big that light is of everyone getting up, waking up, having their breakfast, with their people, taking their journey, whether it's walking or driving. I have to walk 5 minutes to go to mass. Shannon, I think you have to drive like an hour to go to church, and you just think about all these people with the same mission getting together and going to worship and pray and praise and unify in their community. And it's so beautiful. Like, it's just so warm and there's so much love, and if we can wake up and identify with that every single day, there's going to be so much more peace. There's going to be so much more tranquility. And as women, I always talk about, because I learned this, that we are the guardians of our household, and if we can just be that identity and have that identity every single day, we can be so rich in love and compassion and unity and prayer and life and light,
For sure. Something else that I was thinking about. So again, if we thinking about identity, if we learn to identify as a creation of the highest good, then our behaviors come from that place. I think that if we can embody that, then we can only answer to that identity, because that's, when we are aligned in the truth of who we are, everything is possible from that place.
Absolutely. I think when we talk about identity, I really believe wholeheartedly that we're all connected, and that being of God, or from God, we are of God, and I personally believe it is inside of us, and so I heard this really sweet little story about a little child looking for God, looking everywhere, trying to find God. And I think we find ourselves searching for that throughout our lives in a lot of ways. And where is God? A wise person's sitting and talking to that child, and how creative God was to hide it right within you. And I believe that, really, I've thought about that a lot, of, well, is it something that is egotistical to think about, like I am God, or does it live inside of me? And I'm taking this away because, I can go down a rabbit hole and we're talking philosophy of life. But I do believe that, that we are beings of light and beings of God. And looking for the light in the world, and so Shannon, I'm so happy to hear that you're having those experiences where it's showing up in your life, when you need it the most right now, and it does come from complete strangers a lot of the time if we just open our eyes and are open to it and open to connecting with others, instead of in our culture right now being so divided, and people pulling us away from one another and disconnecting us from one another over ridiculous things, political things that really don't have anything to do with what our true hearts are and what we're meant to be. And I love that you said, Carolina, that we are the guardians of our households as women. I've really been focusing on that a lot lately, and thinking about what is my role in that, and realized that I didn't fully understand that for a long time. If I thought my role was a little bit different in some ways. And I do believe that we do kind of set the tone. And so when we talk about identity, for me, that's something that I've really been focusing on for myself. And how do I show up that way for my family, when they're struggling, or even when things are going well, what is my role in that, and how do I help set the tone in my home for them to work through whatever they need to, or have the support that they need, in that way. But, in another aspect for me, identity, I'm in a midlife, stage of life, as we all are. There is a little bit of a soul searching and identity examination of where am I at right now, with my life and career. And, my kids are getting older. One of them just moved and, is away from home. And so, thinking about what that means for me as an individual, and how things change, and it does give you a little bit of for me, a crisis mode. So I understand where that identity crisis, term comes from, of because thinking about what does that mean for me. So I think, thankfully, having the friendships I do with you all, we have a lot of spiritual conversations. And I think for me, being reminded of coming back to that when I start to get all spun up of emotional of my baby's gone and having this struggle or that struggle, and bringing it back to faith and focusing on that, because that really is the heart of it. And where is the light in this difficult situation right now? How do we pull on that and bring that out? And that little song, that this little light of mine, gonna let it shine.
I'm gonna
My
let it
mom
shine.
used to sing that to me when I was a kid, and I always sang it to my kids. So I love that song.
It's such a good
Let's
one to sing to your kids and to yourself. Just replay it in your mind all the time because we are the light, and we just sometimes we
Yeah,
sometimes we take it away from ourselves. Sometimes we
absolutely.
deny it
Yeah.
I'll be
to
honest with you, and
ourselves.
I'll be honest with you, there's a light that I wanna take for myself, and, I've kinda told Savvy a little bit about some text messages been going back and forth between me and a couple of my family members. I don't wanna be there for them anymore. I just don't. I don't want that role, I don't want that title, and they can kick rocks, and don't want that light, and I know that God has assigned us certain roles, and where I'm feeling today, I was up at 5:30 this morning with these feelings of I'm exhausted with the ungratefulness. I am exhausted with how I'm treated. And I don't need my identity is not tied up in these relationships. I am human. I'm a woman, not just a daughter, a friend, a sister, a mother. I'm not just those titles. And I want to check out of one of my roles
Hmm.
and I don't feel bad. You know what I was thinking? Do I want to say that here? I do. I'm exhausted.
It's tricky, Shannon, because every single one of those roles, no matter how difficult, is actually a gift. And you weren't put into those roles by accident. It was with purpose. And it is because you are capable and you are full of giving love and receiving love in all of those roles. And no matter how much you don't feel like you have the energy to fulfill those roles, they're still yours. And it doesn't mean that you don't have to embrace them. It just means that they're there to fulfill you at any time, at any age, at
I'm not.
any place, at
Mhm.
any season. They're
Yeah.
they're there to fill you up. They're there to fill your cup, even if others are judging how you're doing it. That's not what matters. The way that people see you fulfilling those roles is not what matters. It's how you choose to show up in
Mhm.
the most purest, in the most beautiful, in the most loving way that you are capable of right now. And sometimes we are weak and sometimes we are strong. And it doesn't mean that we're not doing enough, no matter how often people in our lives try to tell us, you're not doing enough. You're not good enough. You're being mean. You're being unkind. You're, all those things that we've all heard from our parents, from our children, from our spouses.
Mhm.
It's not about a feeling. It's not about how we feel. It's about our integrity. It's about how we are supposed to act. It's about, I always say this, you have to have a have to, right? And you have to be a certain way in certain situations because of integrity, because of your soul, because how you were created to be. And it's not up to anybody else how you show up. They're not supposed to judge us. Only God can do that. No one else, whether they're your parent or your daughter or your spouse.
It was just thinking how I felt that way before. I have definitely felt what Shannon is talking about. But what I want to say also is that's why I love that book, The Four Agreements. Baby, let me tell y'all, that book really puts some stuff into perspective when you think about how other people perceive you or their perceptions. Because at the end of the day, this world is so broken and everyone's eyes are not always focused on the correct things because of their brokenness. And so it's hard to navigate through a world where people live like that regularly, where name blaming, pointing the finger, just making you feel inadequate, making you feel small, whatever the case may be. But most of the time, it's just the way that people project what's really going on with them into the picture. I felt that way before, and I would love to encourage you, my dear friend, because you don't have to accept the projections of others, and you can love people from a distance. You can love them. We don't have to be around people all the time. Sometimes there's a season when we need to shut people out, and that just is what it is. But I want to encourage you because I know that it's difficult when you think about pouring love into people and wanting them to know that they're loved, but they don't know how to receive or accept it themselves also.
So be encouraged, my friend. Also, I want to say thank you, Aaron, because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to say about identity. I don't know what I wake up every day, but I wake up and I wake up just like, okay, I'm here today. There is sometimes a crisis because it is a midlife situation where things have changed, your roles change. I went from being a single mother to a married wife and my children grown, and I don't even know how to navigate between all of those roles. So sometimes it's hard to find your identity. Sometimes you just have to kind of move with the flow.
You're a caretaker too.
I am a caretaker. Jesus. It's a lot.
Savvy, I think, I know who you are. You're such a strong and faithful woman. You are so grounded in your love of God. I don't
100%.
question that about you for a second. So I feel like when you wake up in the morning, I don't know, I can envision myself waking up next to you.
And her going, baby, it's a
Okay,
new
let me tell
day.
you, when
a new
when she
day.
talks about Bible stories, I'm like, tell me more. Tell me more. I want to know these stories. I just think that the way, she could read the
And it's
way
like
that
in
she
comics.
could retell,
You
the
could see
way
the
she could retell the
pictures.
Bible. I want to learn. I've learned so much. I'll go and she'll be like, "Is your
That's
Bible close?"
beautiful.
And I'll go and I'll get my Bible and I'll look at the story, because just the way she's kind of like my pastor. When my pastor's like, "Yeah, no, we ain't gonna do this." It's so theatrical. And I love it.
Theatrical.
You know your stuff. You know your stuff. And I'm learning so much.
I do love the Lord, and I do, know that I'm grounded in him, but I do think that we all have this moment in our lives where we really just are trying to seek. I don't want to call it completely an existential crisis, right? But we go through life where we kind of are like, what am I doing? Where am I going? Time is wasting. I might not be on the path that I thought I was going to be on, and so that's where I see that for myself. I am grounded, but there are times when I feel a little shaky.
Well, and that's what he wants from us all, right? He wants us to seek him, to love him, to be in community with him, for him, to him, guided by light and beauty and each other. That's such a good word, to be seeking, always seeking.
And behind that seeking, the knowing. I mean, I think one of my favorite, and I don't know if it's from the Bible or if it's something that I heard in church, but it is done unto you as you believe. So if we believe that we have the seed of the highest, purest love and goodness within us,
Purest love and goodness.
what is impossible? If that identity is your reality, so identity, if we believe that about ourselves, we're that energy that we feel, that vibe that we feel from people, that stems from how they identify each and every day. And that in turn, creates the reality that we experience every day. That's why I wanted to talk about this today, because I think we get to choose that day in and day
Every
out.
day.
We get to choose, do I identify? It's like, if you look for the bad stuff, you're going to find it.
You're going to find it.
And it's easier to find the bad stuff. But if you identify as a person who looks for the good, well, that's a Jason Mraz song, by the way.
You're
If
gonna
you
find
look
that
for the
too.
good, you're going to find that too. So what are we choosing? How are we going to wake up and identify today? Do I identify as, and again, I'm totally copying Kathy here, but do I identify as a masterpiece because I am a piece of the master? Do I identify as someone because I am some of the one? Or do I identify as somebody who just is like, gotta get out of bed, gotta go to work, gotta pay the bills?
Going through the motion.
Going through the motions and not remembering who we are. Remember who you are.
I definitely don't feel like that last one. So I love joking with these ladies when I go visit. I signed up for her, but her roommate's like, when are you going to come visit us again? So I was leaving one time and I had these boots on, these suede boots. And she's like, oh, I like your boots. I'm like, girl, I don't know when I'm going to meet my husband, so I need to make sure that I'm looking good. She's like, I know that, girl. She's so Southern. And
you're talking about visiting a senior,
the
sorry to
assisted
interrupt,
living
a senior.
place.
Okay.
So when you going to visit again? So she thinks I'm there for her, but I'm really there for the other woman, because that's who I signed. I don't, it's just not another day for me. I try to do things. If I do leave, I want to be presentable. And I do have that sticky. And I told you guys about that sticky that I have. And I do put it away when the house shows, but I need to leave it out because sometimes I forget to put it out. And it said, God, show me how good life can get. God, show me how good life can be. And then, so there's that. And then do you remember a couple weeks ago, or maybe the week before, I told you about that shirt that said, tap me on your shoulder if you need prayer. And I told you I was at the Atlanta airport and I cried and I just wish somebody would give me a hug or talk to me because my mother had passed away and I was traveling. I had actually found out my mother had passed away when I was at the Atlanta airport. And so I was getting back in my car. I had parked my car. I went to get on the airplane. I was about to board and I found out my mom had died. And I just wish somebody had hugged me. And I thought about that today when I had that encounter with this person. I was feeling a particular way today. I don't know why, but I also felt that. I was like, did God hear me? Because there was another time I was at church and there was a woman who was in tears and I wish I had asked her. She squeezed my hand. Everybody held hands and she squeezed my hand. He's like, if you need to be saved today, or if you're going through something, you don't have to announce it to everybody. Just squeeze the hand of the person next to you. She squeezed my hand. And I wish I had asked her to coffee. And so it was these little moments that I kind of had missed. And I was heard today. I felt like I was heard today. I just want to share that with you. These
And
little
that's a
moments that I
wonder-
feel like was heard.
Praise God. That's beautiful.
That's a wonderful
Yep.
moment because isn't that what we all want? You know, we
Mhm.
want to be seen.
And
we
it's
want to be
right there.
heard.
It's always there. It's just always there for us to surrender to it. But sometimes we
We don't remember
check
who we
out.
are.
Yeah, exactly. We are perfectly made in His image.
To your point,
Yes.
too, that's why it's so important to be in
And again, I
community.
just want to say whatever you define that as, because we've got some multiple faiths in our group.
Multi-faithful.
We are a group of many faiths, but we know that ultimately there is one higher being. We all have our own ways of connecting with him, her, it. So any other thoughts, ladies? I know that, this conversation can be a little heavy because it's something we have to remember on a daily basis. I think it's something we have to make a concerted effort to take a few seconds out before we jump out of bed to remember who we are, to remember how we're going to identify. And what I want everybody out there is to remember that your identity, again, is sending out a signal to the world. And that identity is creating your reality. So choose it every day. Don't grab that phone first thing in the morning. Take a minute, 2 minutes, and remember who you are. Remember that you are perfectly made, like my sister said.
Amen.
And remember, and again, I'm stealing from Kathy, you are some of the one. And you are a masterpiece because you are a piece of the master. So remember that every day. And go out there and have an amazing 2026. I'm sorry.
I just want to give just one challenge. I think we've said this before. Instead of closing your blinds at night, open them. Let the light shine into your room and let that be the first light that you see instead of your phone. Open your blinds at night so that you wake up to the beauty of the day.
Very well said.
Beautiful. And with that, we will wish you a happy Sunday, and we will see you next week.
Adios.
Hey.